The clatter of plates and the low hum of conversation were the usual soundtrack to my evenings at the daily grind. It wasn't the fanciest place, but it was honest work. I wiped down table 5, a sticky residue of spilled soda clinging to the laminate, and my mind wandered, as it often did, to a life that felt a million miles away. A life with a white picket fence, a husband, and a little boy with eyes that sparkled like the morning dew. A dream I knew that would likely remain just that. I was brought back to the present by the sudden, high-pitched voice of a child. "Daddy, that's her!" My heart hitched. I froze, the damp cloth still in my hand. It was a common enough phrase, something a child might say, pointing at a toy or a cartoon character on the TV screen mounted in the corner. But the tone, the urgency in that little voice, it sent a prickle of unease down my spine. I didn't turn around immediately. I couldn't. My breath was caught somewhere in my throat, and a cold dread began to pool in my stomach. No, I told myself. It can't be. My past was buried deep, locked away in a box I rarely opened. "Who, son?" A man's voice, deep and calm, responded. "The lady. The one from the picture." My hands started to tremble. The cloth slipped from my fingers, landing with a soft, wet thud on the floor. I slowly, painstakingly, turned, and there he was. A little boy, maybe 6 years old, with a mop of sandy blonde hair and the most striking blue eyes I had ever seen. He was pointing directly at me, his face alight with recognition. And standing beside him, his hand resting on the boy's shoulder, was a man. Tall, with kind eyes and a gentle smile that faltered just a little when his gaze met mine. It was him. Michael. My first love. The man I had left, without a word, 10 years ago. The world seemed to tilt on its axis. The sounds of the cafe faded into a distant buzz. All I could see were those blue eyes, so familiar and yet so new, staring back at me. And then I saw the faint, almost imperceptible scar above Michael's left eyebrow, a memory of a clumsy fall from a treehouse when we were kids. A memory that felt as fresh as yesterday. My mouth was dry. My tongue felt like sandpaper. I wanted to run, to hide, to disappear into the chipped paint on the wall. But my feet were rooted to the spot, concrete blocks holding me captive. Michael's smile disappeared completely. His eyes, once so full of warmth, now held a mixture of shock, confusion, and something else I couldn't quite decipher. Hurt, maybe? Disappointment? "Sarah?" he whispered, his voice barely audible above the cafe's din. My name, after so many years, on his lips. It felt like a punch to the gut and a comforting embrace all at once. I managed a weak, "Michael." It was a shaky, breathy sound, not at all like my usual confident tone. The little boy, sensing the sudden shift in the adult's demeanor, tugged on Michael's shirt. "Daddy, is that her? Is that the lady you told me about?" Michael knelt down, his gaze still fixed on me, but his hand stroked the boy's hair. "Yes, son. I think it is." He stood up slowly, his eyes never leaving mine. "What? What are you doing here, Sarah?" The question hung in the air, heavy and loaded with years of unspoken words, unanswered questions, and a decade of silence. I wanted to explain, to apologize, to scream. But all that came out was a strangled, "I work here." It sounded pathetic, even to my own ears. He nodded slowly, taking in my worn uniform, the tired lines around my eyes, the way my hair was pulled back in a messy bun. I could see the wheels turning in his mind, putting together the pieces of a puzzle I had deliberately scattered. "Mommy said you were very beautiful," the little boy piped up, looking at me with an innocent curiosity that cut through my shame. "And you are. Just like in the picture." My heart squeezed. "Mommy? A picture? What picture?" Michael cleared his throat, a nervous habit I remembered well. "Ethan, why don't you go sit down? I'll be right there." He gestured to a small, unoccupied table in the corner. Ethan, bless his sweet, obedient heart, skipped over and climbed onto a chair, his eyes still darting between me and his dad. Once Ethan was seated, Michael stepped closer to me, his voice lowered. "Sarah, we need to talk." I flinched. Talk? What was there to talk about? I had made my choices, walked away, burned every bridge behind me. "There's nothing to talk about, Michael," I said, trying to infuse my voice with a confidence I didn't feel. "It was a long time ago." "A long time ago that you vanished without a trace," he corrected, his voice calm but laced with an undeniable edge. "A long time ago that you broke my heart?" The words stung. They were true, every single one of them. I had broken his heart, and in doing so, I had broken a piece of my own. My eyes welled up, and I quickly turned my head, hoping he wouldn't see the tears that threatened to spill. I have to go back to work." "No, you don't," he said, stepping in front of me, blocking my escape. "Not until we talk. Ethan just recognized you from a photo. A photo I've carried for 10 years, Sarah. A photo he's seen countless times because I wanted him to know who his mother was." The words hit me like a physical blow. His mother. My hand flew to my mouth, stifling a gasp. "Michael, what are you saying?" He looked at me, his gaze unwavering, full of a pain that mirrored my own. "Ethan is our son, Sarah. He's our son." The world truly did spin then. The cafe, the customers, the clatter, it all vanished. There was only Michael, his words, and the little boy with my eyes, sitting patiently at a table, looking like a miniature version of the man I had loved and left. My knees buckled. I gripped the edge of a table to steady myself, my knuckles white. "No," I whispered, shaking my head. "It can't be. Why not?" He challenged, his voice softening slightly. "You left a week after we found out you were pregnant. You just disappeared." The memories, long suppressed, came rushing back. The fear, the panic, the overwhelming sense of not being ready. I had been so young, so foolish. I had convinced myself that I was protecting him, protecting the baby, by leaving. That I wasn't good enough, strong enough to be a mother. I had believed I was doing the right thing, sparing them from the mess I was. I was scared, I finally managed to stammer out. The truth an aching confession. I was so scared, Michael. I didn't think I could be a mother. I thought I'd ruin everything." He reached out, his hand hovering for a moment before gently taking my arm. "You weren't alone, Sarah. You were never alone. I would have been there with you, every step of the way." Tears streamed down my face now, hot and unstoppable. 10 years of regret, of longing, of a grief I hadn't allowed myself to fully acknowledge, all came crashing down. "I know," I sobbed, shaking my head. "I know, and I'm so sorry, Michael." I was a coward. I was so stupid. He pulled me into a hug then, a familiar embrace that felt like coming home. His arms were strong and comforting, just as I remembered. I buried my face in his shoulder, the scent of him, a mix of fresh air and something uniquely him, filling my senses. "Shh, it's okay, Sarah," he murmured, stroking my hair. "It's okay. We can fix this." We stayed like that for a long moment, me clinging to him, letting years of pain and unspoken apologies pour out in my tears. When I finally pulled away, my face was streaked with mascara, but a strange sense of lightness had settled over me. The weight I had carried for so long had finally begun to lift. I looked over at Ethan, who was now watching us with wide, curious eyes. My son, my beautiful, innocent son. He looked so much like Michael, but there was a tilt to his chin, a spark in his eyes that I recognized as my own. He's beautiful, Michael," I whispered, my voice thick with emotion. Michael smiled, a genuine, heartfelt smile that reached his eyes. "He is, and he's a lot like you too. Stubborn, curious, and always asking questions." A watery laugh escaped me. "He gets that from his mother, I guess." The words felt strange, unfamiliar, but undeniably right. "He's been wanting to meet you for a long time," Michael said, his hand still resting on my arm. "I've told him stories about you, about how much I loved you, about how amazing you were." More tears. This man, this incredible man, had kept my memory alive for our son, even after I had abandoned them both. He hadn't been bitter, hadn't poisoned Ethan's mind against me. He had shown him love, even for the woman who had walked away. "I don't deserve you." "Michael," I said, looking up at him, my heart aching with both pain and a newfound hope. Don't say that, he said, his gaze firm. We all make mistakes, Sarah. What matters is what we do about them now. He gently took my hand. Let's go talk, really talk. Away from here. Ethan can join us if you're ready. I looked at my son again, truly looked at him. His eyes, full of wonder and a shy smile, met mine. A future I had never dared to dream of was suddenly laid out before me. It wouldn't be easy, I knew that. There were years of hurt to mend, of explanations to give, of trust to rebuild. But for the first time in a decade, I felt a flicker of hope, a warmth spreading through my chest. Yes, I said, my voice stronger now, more certain. Yes, I'm ready. I'm so ready. I looked at Michael, then back at Ethan, and a genuine smile, one that reached my eyes, finally bloomed on my face. It was a long road ahead, but for the first time in a long time, I wasn't walking it alone. I had found my way home, to the family I never knew I had. I took a deep breath, steeling myself. Ethan, I called out, my voice still a little shaky but full of a new resolve. Come here, sweetie. Ethan's face lit up and he scrambled off his chair, practically flying across the cafe floor. He stopped a few feet from me, looking up with those incredible blue eyes. Hi, he said, a shy smile playing on his lips. Hi, I replied, kneeling down so I was at his eye level. My hand trembled slightly as I reached out, gently touching his soft, sandy hair. It felt like touching a dream. It's so nice to finally meet you. He giggled, a bright, joyous sound that resonated deep within my soul. You're even prettier than in the picture, Mommy. The word, Mommy. It was a word I had thought I would never hear directed at me. It felt like sunshine after a long, dark winter. My eyes welled up again, but these were tears of pure joy. Thank you, sweetie, I whispered, pulling him into a gentle hug. He felt so small, so innocent, so precious. A flood of love, fierce and protective, washed over me. I had missed so much, so many firsts, so many moments, but here he was, in my arms, and that was all that mattered right now. Michael stood above us, a soft smile on his face, a silent promise in his eyes. He had waited for me. He had kept our son safe and loved. And now, somehow, impossibly, he was giving me a second chance. I pulled back from Ethan, wiping away a stray tear. How about we all go get some ice cream? I suggested, a playful note in my voice. My treat. Ethan's eyes widened and he bounced on the balls of his feet. Yes, ice cream? Michael chuckled, a warm, familiar sound. Sounds good to me. He held out his hand to me, and I took it, my fingers lacing with his. The touch was electric, a decade of yearning condensed into a single moment. As we walked out of the daily grind, hand in hand, with Ethan skipping ahead, my heart felt lighter than it had in years. The future was still uncertain, still held its own challenges, but for the first time in a very long time, I wasn't afraid. I had found my family, my purpose, my missing piece, and I knew with every fiber of my being that I would never, ever let them go again. The sun was beginning to set, painting the sky in hues of orange and pink, a beautiful new beginning to a story I had thought was long over. I looked at Michael, at Ethan, and a profound sense of gratitude filled me. Life had a funny way of bringing you back to where you were meant to be. And for me, that was right here, with them. Later that evening, after a very long, very sweet ice cream session and countless stories shared, Michael, Ethan, and I were sitting in his cozy living room. Ethan was curled up on the couch, half asleep, clutching a well-worn stuffed elephant. He's had that elephant since he was a baby, Michael whispered, seeing my gaze on the toy. He calls him Ellie. I smiled, a soft, wistful smile. It's perfect. Michael turned to me, his voice a low, steady rumble. Sarah, there's so much we need to talk about everything. Why you left, what you've been doing, how we move forward. I nodded, taking a deep breath. I know, and I want to. I want to tell you everything, but can I just hold him for a little while first? I gestured to Ethan. He looked at me, a question in his eyes, then a gentle understanding. "Of course," he said, a soft smile spreading across his face. I carefully picked up my sleeping son, cradling him in my arms. He stirred slightly, nestling his head against my shoulder, his small hand instinctively gripping my shirt. The warmth of his body, the soft scent of him, filled me with an overwhelming sense of peace. This was what I had unknowingly longed for, what I had so foolishly run from. He's truly a miracle. "Michael," I whispered, my voice thick with emotion. "He is," Michael agreed, coming to sit beside me on the couch. He put his arm around my shoulders, a familiar gesture that felt both new and comforting. "And he deserves to know his mother." My eyes met his, and I saw no judgment, only understanding and a profound love that still flickered brightly. Even after all these years, I want to be his mother. "Michael," I confessed, the words raw and honest. "More than anything." "You are, Sarah," he said, pulling me closer. "You always have been." We sat there for a long time, the quiet broken only by Ethan's soft, even breathing. It was just the three of us, a family slowly, tentatively, finding its way back together. The road ahead would be long, filled with challenges and hard conversations, but for the first time in a decade, I wasn't afraid. I had found my way home. And as I looked at the little boy sleeping peacefully in my arms, I knew that every single moment of pain, every single tear, every single regret, had led me to this moment. This beautiful, impossible second chance. I closed my eyes, a silent prayer of thanks escaping my lips. The past was behind us. The future, with all its unknowns, stretched out before us, bright with the promise of healing, forgiveness, and a love that had defied time itself. And for the first time in 10 years, I truly felt like I belonged. The next morning, the sun streamed through the living room window, painting streaks of warm light across the floor. I woke to the feeling of a small hand gently patting my cheek. "Mommy, wake up!" Ethan's voice was a cheerful whisper. My eyes fluttered open, and I was met with his bright blue gaze, so full of energy and innocent joy. He was perched on the edge of the couch, his face close to mine. "Good morning, sleepyhead," I murmured, a genuine smile spreading across my face. The word "mommy" felt natural on his lips now, a melody I was finally learning to hum. He giggled. "Daddy's making pancakes. With chocolate chips." My stomach rumbled in response. "Chocolate chip pancakes? Sounds amazing." I sat up, stretching, and looked around the familiar yet new surroundings. Michael was in the kitchen, the aroma of coffee and sizzling batter filling the air. He glanced over, a soft smile on his face. "Morning, Sarah," he said, his voice warm and inviting. "Slept well?" "Better than I have in years," I admitted, standing up and heading towards the kitchen, Ethan skipping excitedly beside me. The kitchen was bright and airy, a stark contrast to the small, cramped apartment I had grown used to. There were magnets on the fridge, a child's drawing taped to the cabinet, and a general air of lived-in warmth. A home, a real home. Michael flipped a pancake with practiced ease. "Good. We have a lot to talk about, but first, breakfast." As we sat at the kitchen table, a comfortable silence punctuated by the clinking of forks and Ethan's enthusiastic munching, I felt a sense of peace settle over me. It was a tentative peace, fragile still, but it was there. After breakfast, Michael suggested we take Ethan to the park. The idea of spending a day with them, simply being a family, filled me with a quiet joy. At the park, Ethan was a whirlwind of energy, chasing pigeons, attempting to climb every piece of playground equipment, and constantly calling out to us, "Look, Mommy! Look, Daddy!" Every time he said "Mommy," my heart swelled. It was a sound I would never tire of hearing. Michael and I sat on a bench, watching him play. The conversation flowed easily between us now, an intertwining of past and present. I told him about my years away, the struggles, the regrets, the constant ache in my heart I hadn't understood until now. He listened patiently, his hand resting on my knee, a comforting presence. He, in turn, told me about raising Ethan, the challenges, and the immense joys. He spoke of the unconditional love he had for our son, and how, even after I left, he had never truly given up hope that I would return. "I always kept that photo," he confessed, a small, embarrassed smile on his face. "The one of us at the beach, remember? The one where you had that silly grin and your hair was all wild. I remembered it perfectly. We had been so young, so carefree, so full of dreams. I remember," I whispered, a tear tracing a path down my cheek. "I thought I'd forgotten that, Sarah." "She was always there," he said softly, squeezing my hand. "Just waiting to come back." As the afternoon wore on, a profound understanding settled between us. The wounds were still there, but they were no longer gaping. They were beginning to heal, slowly, with each shared glance, each gentle touch, each whispered confession. We talked about the future, about what this meant for us, for Ethan. It wouldn't be simple. There were legalities, practicalities, and the enormous task of building a new life, a new family dynamic from the ashes of the old. But for the first time in a decade, it felt possible. More than possible, it felt right. "Mommy, Daddy, look," Ethan called, sliding down a slide with a triumphant yell. We both looked, and our eyes met over his beaming head. A shared smile, a silent promise passed between us. This was our second chance. A chance to be a family, to make up for lost time, to build a future filled with love and laughter. And as I watched my son, my beautiful, energetic son, race towards us, I knew with absolute certainty that this was where I belonged. This was my home, and these were my people.